Oh, excuse me.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Crypto Hour. Today, Friday, the 14th of November, and it's 9 o'clock. I remind everyone in the UK, and it stays at 9 o'clock throughout the year, even when daylight saving time hits in different parts of the world at different time, which makes it all very confused. Just in case you wonder, just check on your computer what time is it in London now, and you'll know exactly when we started. Okay, so let me go straight away to share my screen. And now a lot been going on in crypto lately. Let's try and make sense of it. Always, as usual, let's start from the economic calendar. Now, something that you may notice is kind of the absence of a lot of red red files, which indicate kind of important announcements. This because the basically all the main US announcements have been kind of withdrawn because obviously there is an impasse that is just being sorted out. So all the government departments are not doing any work, so they're not putting out any data either. Okay, so normally we were waiting for CPI figures yesterday, they were not released. We were waiting for job figures, they were not released. This is causing quite a lot of uncertainties in the market because they're not aware. They can't base a decision on data because it's not being released. So you can see nothing. We were expecting for CPI figures yesterday and PPI today, but as you can see, they now disappeared. Um, and we don't know if they are going to then, when the um, when this government's departments are working again, we don't know if past figures are going to be released or not. Okay, so it remains to be seen. Let's go and have a look at next week. Um, what are we waiting for? We've got CPI for Canada, CPI for the UK, not really. Wage price index in Australia. Um, Publication of the FOMC meeting minutes, which happened a while ago. And we already know pretty much, although it's a red announcement, we already know the content of it pretty much. Um, So possibly we're going to start again with the unemployment claims on Thursday, but we don't know until that happens. And on Friday we have just manufacturing figures from Europe, pound, and the US, if they get published. So nothing major happening next week in terms of announcements. So uncertainty prevails in the market. So at the moment, we're looking at, with the different members of the policy committee, monetary policy committee, that have kind of had interview in the press, saying that we might have a pause in the interest rate cuts in December, and that has caused a negative reaction in all the risk assets that rely on increased liquidity, and kind of they rely on lower price of doing business by lowering interest rates. So at the moment, there's like a 50-50 chance that the Fed are going to cut interest rates at the December meeting, and we were seen almost like a given with an over 70% chance that there would be a cut. Now that we are just below 50%, so we remain on the fence to see what actually happens. Now, talking about the Monetary Policy Committee and the Fed, like Jerome Powell, in his last main interview after the last meeting, did say that on the 1st of December the Fed will stop the monetary tightening, okay, which translated in plain words means that they're going to start easing again from December. Now, they also come back with, in interviews and said that pretty much now the bank reserves are back where they want them to be. So again, the banks are going to be free to start lending again in the first half of 2026. So what we are looking forward now, just in case, we're talking about, we'll be talking about Bitcoin and what the other markets are doing in a second. But you might already have noticed that there has been a downturn in the markets. So if we look at for example, this is the S&P 500. I can see that it is kind of like showing the starting of possibly, excuse me, I have probably with my voice today. So there have been starting of printing what could be the beginning of a reversal pattern. Okay, so the main couple of levels that we are looking at here is confirmation of movement below that point, which is just about 100 points below where we are right now, could be the minimum required for having the beginning of a downtrend, and also the previous uptrend would be broken as and when we break below this point, which requires again another 150 points or so of downturn. So at the moment, it's nothing major. There is obviously, as you can see, there is uncertainty in the market. So nothing great in terms of, the markets haven't collapsed, but they are gone down 3%. So nothing major so far. And if the uptrend is respected, then we would expect, some bounce before we get to 6,500 and then create a new high. But also this kind of move after we've been in like an extended tear, really from all the way from April, it shows that the market is starting to pause and feeling nervous about the current levels. As it feels even when we look at the Nasdaq, it's a little bit more pronounced, but pretty much we are in the same pattern. Maybe the drop has been a little bit more. Yeah. So it's dropped like 6% rather than 3.5%. But with exactly almost like identical pattern to the S&P. The one index that can be slightly different, I'll look at the Russell 2000, which shows like medium to small size companies. And the Russell 2000 is actually, it's playing with breaking the uptrend right at the moment. So just a small drop from here, 2387 was the low, 2381. So just a closing about 10 points below where it is at the moment will confirm the end of the current uptrend, and then we'll see what comes next there. So this is more indicative of the real American economy. So it's dropped 7.5% since the top, and just bear in mind that compared to the S&P and the Nasdaq, they've gone up a lot. They are dominated by multinational company. This is below the 2022 high. So only recently it struggled above the 2022 high, and now it moves back below. So this is, what you can see is that what as the American economy, the real American economy, not the the Google and Facebook of this world, which are almost like supranational companies that don't really belong in any jurisdiction but operate all over the world. It shows you that in these past 3 years, the American economy really hasn't done much. Okay, so it's maintained, let's say, the levels that it had in 2022, but it hasn't done any better than that, really. And now we are now moving back into levels that are below is 2022 high. Okay. Now let's have a look. So obviously, recently we had a high correlation between the Nasdaq, which is the more technology-minded of the indices, and Bitcoin. Okay, so we go and plot Bitcoin on there. We can see that. So where is gone from? Let's go from April. Okay, so we can see there has been a similar move in Bitcoin as in the Nasdaq. Okay, when the Nasdaq goes up, Bitcoin goes up. When the Nasdaq goes down, Bitcoin goes down. The one thing that we have noticed difference recently is that Bitcoin is reacting on the downside a lot more than it is on the upside. Okay, so as you can see, the movements on the way up are pretty much similar to the movement on the Nasdaq, but on the way down, they're a lot more pronounced. So it's a similar structure that we saw, yeah, at the kind of close to the bottom of the previous cycle. Sorry, at the where the bear market bottomed out and then started to grow. So so as you can see here, any movement of the Nasdaq was amplified on the downside by the movements in Bitcoin. On the other side, when the Nasdaq went up, Bitcoin didn't go up by that much. Okay, so it's a similar phase that we are now in what we're seeing here in 2022, late 2022, early 2023. So does it mean that from here on, Bitcoin is going to then repeat the same pattern? No, it doesn't at all. But we can only just state what we see. So let me go now to close that off, and let's move on to Bitcoin. Okay. So as you can see now, we have dropped quite substantially. And now we have, for the first time since May, we have dropped into this area, which is an area of weekly demand. Okay, which is the area that goes from roughly 98,000, 97.9 to all the way down to 92.8. Okay, so historically speaking, this would be an area where we are expected to see a reversal, whether temporary or uh, long term remains to be seen. Now, it is an area where we expect demand to then show up and start putting the price higher. At the moment, we are pretty much locked in this battle. Sorry, let me change color of that to make it more obvious. We are locked in this battle between the area that we are now, about 98 to 93, to the area that we got at the top, which is like between even maybe lower than that, between the 105 and 110. Okay, so the kind of like expectation for the low to the short term is that we're going to be some ping pong going on between these two areas, waiting for what though? What is the catalyst that could push price on one direction or another? Okay, so there are two things that influence Bitcoin very highly. The main thing being liquidity. Okay, so how much liquidity is going on in the system, so how much bank lending there is, how much new money creation there is across the world, not just in the US. And interest rates as well, obviously, are part of that game. So the two things that are coming are, interest rate decision in December in the US. In terms of liquidity, there was the announcement by Jerome Powell that the quantitative tightening is ending in a couple of weeks. Okay, 1st of December is actually the date they say we will stop any quantitative tightening from the 1st of December. That means that from then on, the money supply will start to expand again. Okay, so it translates. If you're not doing quantitative tightening, you're doing quantitative easing. Okay, so that means new capital is going to be available in the form of kind of like fiscal stimulus, in the form of incentive. So cutting interest rates with an economy that's not in recession, but it's still growing at 2% plus, it's almost like producing, like putting fuel onto a fire. So we are stimulated not a recessionary economy, but we are stimulating an economy, especially with AI, is in pretty much of a bubble. So what will that then cause in, especially the first two trimesters of next year, the first two quarters? It's almost kind of like an inflation of this bubble. Also considering that next year we have the midterm elections in the US, so obviously Trump will want to give his electors something to cheer about. Okay, so obviously, again, this is why there are going to be a lot of an acceleration of money creation in the first half of 2026, but not just from the US, but also you'll see, kind of, I can show the numbers that we're showing you as well from China, from Australia, in a smaller part from Europe as well. So in a lot of the world, we are going to revert course. And now, after we've absorbed all the funds that were printed during the pandemic, we are ready to start again. So what that means is that nominally, we will go from an economy that at the moment is growing at around 2 to 3% in the US. Probably we'll see in 2026 something closer to 6% in terms of growth, because artificially created because a big thanks to all this fiscal stimulus, and plus this all the extra money creation. And on top of that, an extra bonus could come from the Supreme Court. Okay. Now the Supreme Court is expected to rule on the Trump's tariffs, and the expected result of that ruling would be that the tariffs will be declared illegal. So what then follows is that all the companies, small companies, medium companies that have paid the tariffs to import goods would be entitled to a refund. This altogether would amount to around $200 billion. Now, $200 billion of a refund, again, it will be an extra injection of funds possibly in the American economy when it's already awash with funds. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than that, because Trump could then institute new tariffs that would have a limited duration, and then they would have to go through court again, etc., etc. So it's
Sorry.
not that the day after we get this ruling, you get all this money being paid back to everybody.
Yeah.
But still, from the point of view of business, there is that possibility. And at the moment, as I already told you a couple of weeks ago, there are hedge funds that are buying refund rights from companies at 20 to 30 cents in the dollar. So basically, companies will give up the rights to claim in exchange for a payment of about 20 to 30%, which from their point of view, it's an extra cash injection in the business. They don't have to worry about taking anybody to court. But obviously, hedge funds are not in the business of losing money willingly. So if they are putting good money over that, it is on the belief that it's pretty much a open and closed case, and that the administration would lose the case in the Supreme Court. So all these things basically are coming in a way that
Question?
would
Sorry, hon.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be, with all that kind of thing of just forcing money through, wouldn't that cause inflationary trends?
Eventually, yes.
Okay.
First of all, how it manifests straight away is in the price of assets. So if I should say, what's the best thing to do for 2026 is own assets rather than cash. Okay. Because assets obviously reflect are priced in the amount of money there is around the world. So the more money there is, and the more the price of asset goes up, because the price of assets doesn't change as quickly as the money supply. So it would first of all showing the financial markets, and then eventually, you know, assuming that the economy keeps growing at a fast pace, then it will show in the and the if the economy doesn't grow as fast as the money supply, then that will show as inflation as well. So yes, well spotted. That from the point of view of Bitcoin, as you can see here, if we have a kind of from a point of view of weekly or a monthly chart, like a long-term chart, we are basically would be in an uptrend up and until this level here is broken, about 74,500. So this is at the moment is the line in the sand here. Okay. So at this point, it's the markets are in fear, and as you can see, they are reacting to the down, 20 negative news a lot more heavily than they are reacting to the positive news. But all this will carry on going on until there is a reason to cheer. And this will be pretty much connected to the A, to the liquidity, and B, to the legislation that's going through the legislative process in the US with the Clarity Act. So we'll see again when that gets, if it passes the Senate and the House of Representatives, when it's actually written into law. But in the meantime, it's still, from a long-term perspective, we are actually now in one of the maybe opportunity areas. As I said, below 98,000, and until this kind of like 93,000 gets broken, we're still in an area where we'd be kind of like willing buyers rather than panic sellers, as investors in crypto. Now, we're only looking at Bitcoin, but anything smaller would show you even kind of like deeper moves than this one. But for a lot of the main coins, the structure would be somewhat similar without the higher highs, making the new highs in Bitcoin. But for at least for the cycle move would be a similar move. Now, in terms of other things, let's have a look. So this is the Newport chart. So we are now in the kind of like in the belief in an area between 25 and 50. So the area of what is called like cautious optimism. Okay. Then there's the area of kind of strong belief, which is between 50 and 75, and then like greed and euphoria, there's above 75. So there's still a lot of headway. So the market is obviously not panicking, is not euphoric, is somewhere kind of like almost like apathic at the moment, in a sort of apathy. But that means that we are at the levels that are way above previous all-time high, and it is almost like kind of like a bad time right now. So potentially with a little change in mood, which could come from several factors, we could then have a considerable upside before hitting any sort of obstacles. So it would be, if we were to hit a new all-time high, these levels would barely be touched. So there's nothing to worry at the moment. The realized price keeps moving up. Realized price. So at the moment we are above 56,000. So this is the number at which each Bitcoin last moved, the average number. And we can consider pretty much as like the bottom of the bear market. This number obviously will carry on going up as long as this value is above this. So it's still, it's just, if you counted this number was a couple of years ago, was at around below 20,000. It shows you how kind of what is the new normal in Bitcoin after a couple of years now, that the price has almost doubled and it's getting close to levels that were close to the previous all-time high of 2021. We're moving in that direction, and that will become the floor, the next, or the next phase. And when you look at age bands, okay, which ones are showing a kind of like incline or decline? So there have been some sell-off from the medium time holders. We have 3 to 5 years. You can see it's declined. The areas that have gone up, it's this 12 to 18 months, they're still buying. 6 to 12 months are still buying. So, and the kind of very long-term holders as well are still buying. Okay, so a little bit of adjustment, nothing majors in terms of what we can see from these age bands, obviously. Whereas the selling pressure come from pretty much from the new buyers, like the 1 week to 1 month holders. They are obviously panicking and selling off. And the kind of very, very short-term traders that they invest for kind of less than a month. So kind of short-term, all the short-term holders are selling off. Little movement in anything from 6 months and above, even 3 to 6 months. So it's telling you something. It means that the majority of people they are buying for the medium to long term is still going up. Okay, so 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months. So people that have kept their Bitcoin for at least 3 months and above, they're pretty much all going up with a little adjustment in the 3 to 5 year range has gone down slightly. But all the selling pressure has come from short-term holders of less than a month. Okay, and other thing that we can look at as well, it's ETFs. So what happens to the ETFs? There was, let me just upgrade it. And so let me just update this. Okay, so we started the week with a little bit of inflow, and Monday was bank holiday as well. Yesterday was quite one of the heaviest outflows that there's ever been. So at the moment we are sitting at about $500 million of outflows this week. Plus we'll see what happens, what will be reported after today. Now the interesting thing is that that's as well for the Ethereum, for the established I would say ETFs. As you can see, Ethereum as well has had outflows again of about $500 million, which is a lot more for Ethereum because they've got a much lower total than Bitcoin. But also, so now we have Solana ETFs that keep actually accumulating funds even in the downturn. So that shows you what the institutional appetite is for now smaller coins. And on top of that, this week we had the launch of the XRP ETF, which wait a second, where is it? So the XRP ETF has been the one with the biggest first day volume of all ETFs launched in 2025. Okay, so it shows, I mean, it doesn't mean that XRP price has still gone down, during and after the launch, but it shows you in institutional appetite as well on anything else that is not Bitcoin and Ethereum that is launched. At the moment we have a Solana XRP ETF, we have a Litecoin and HBAR as well. So all of them have seen robust demand. They've only been going for a few days, but they all have had quite a lot of inflows into it. Now, Before we go into anything else, there's a couple of things that I wanted to highlight in terms of safety. Now, not everything that you find on the Apple Store or Chrome Store or anything anywhere else where you get your apps is necessarily good. There is the number 4 crypto wallet for downloads, it's called SafeFree Ethereum Wallet on the Chrome Web Store, as is actually incorporating a backdoor to copy your seed phrases. Okay, so it's a basically it's a malicious crypto wallet extension. Okay, and what they do, so they exfiltrate seed phrases by encoding them into SUI addresses and broadcasting microtransaction from a threat actor controlled SUI wallet. So if that went below you, kind of did it for me as well. But it's at the end of the day, I was thinking this could actually steal your seed phrases. So be very careful in what you use. And another thing they actually seen personally with somebody in the community is it's another problem that some people have been already suffering in the past, including Mark, that when you want to send funds to a third person in crypto, you copy their wallet address and then you paste it onto your exchange or onto your wallet, and then you send those funds to that address. Now, there is a virus on some computer that you might have picked up without realizing that changes as you copy that address on your copy the address before you paste it on your program to send the funds. It changes that address, so the funds do not go to the desired address but go to a different place. So I would say it's very, very important when you send anything that you double check the whole crypto address, that it matches what you have, where you want to send it and what you actually have pasted on wherever you have your funds, on your wallet or on your exchange. Okay, because doing that transfer, sometimes it can be a switch of, it can only be maybe one letter or one number that will go to a completely different address than where you want to send it. Okay, so in that case, it means that your browser has actually got infected with the virus, and it wouldn't be a good idea to use it until it has been cleaned completely. So in that case, you either take it somewhere to get it examined and cleaned up to clean of any virus, or simply you stop using that browser. You use another browser and then you recreate your address from a different browser. But it is worrying because obviously you think everything is safe when you're doing these transactions, and you are the only person that's responsible for these transactions. If they go wrong, there's no way, 99 times out of 100, there's no way to get your funds back. So be very, very, very careful. Okay, Eric, you had a question about that?
Yes, thank you. Luca, does that mean you control every letter or every figure, not just the front and the back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it takes a couple of minutes to make sure that it's the only way that you can make sure that the
Okay.
number hasn't been tampered with.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, some bits of more news, which are, even in the, price drop that we've seen for Bitcoin, there are some good news, like a couple of things from, for example, Luxembourg has actually invested 1% of its asset. We're only about 7 million euros, not talking about huge amounts. He has invested into Bitcoin. So there is the first sovereign wealth fund that has actually invested in Bitcoin. And that's the Luxembourg finance minister was actually speaking at the Bitcoin Amsterdam 2025 meeting, and saying that the nation is keen to be among the first to adopt Bitcoin through its sovereign wealth fund. And so even let me be clear, Luxembourg hodls means Luxembourg will hold this fund, will not use them to to trade, but will actually hold them long term. And similar news as well, but slightly different from the Czech Republic. So the Czech Republic has created a small test portfolio with in cryptocurrency. So this is the Czech National Bank, okay, and at the moment they only done it to what they say to study how it works and to make sure that they understand the processes included. But obviously, if they are testing, it's because they want to do something with it. Otherwise, they wouldn't bother. So it shows you that we have now sovereign wealth funds. Like in the case of Luxembourg, we have kind of the national banks. They are starting. So this is an example, even if it's tiny, is an example of a central bank now starting to buy cryptocurrency. Okay, so again, these are not things that happen overnight, but they're all like, if you just look at the prices, you might get confused because you might not understand what is going on in the background. But these are all decisions that are take a lot more to come to float to the top. But they are decisions that are creating long-term demand for these assets. The assets they are creating use cases. So now it's not just individual like me and you. They're thinking, I'll buy Bitcoin because it's good for the future. Now it's literally government and central banks. They are starting to see how they can use this for their own purposes. Okay, so we are moving towards the next stage in the in the cryptocurrency adoption, where it becomes institutionalized. And just the last thing, so we already talked about XRP. The last thing before we kind of move on to have a conversation, it's Grayscale. So Grayscale Investments files for an IPO, so initial public offering with the SEC. So they are going to be again in another crypto company that is going to the stock market. So Grayscale, one of the biggest providers of crypto ETFs and crypto trusts, investment trusts as well, which so they started even before ETFs are possible. They had investment trust in in Bitcoin and Ethereum that then converted into ETFs. Now they have trust in other coins as well, that as the ETF gets approved, then they will be converted to ETFs as well. But it's so there's quite a few potentially IPOs that are coming to the market next year, including we talked about Kraken last week. Grayscale is another one of the big players. So again, there is ways both of we can see demand from institutional level demand, but also we can see these companies that have built for a long time. They're starting to collect new funds and cash in by selling more shares as you go in the open markets. So just last but not least, so we see at the moment we're sitting at 97,000 at the moment in Bitcoin. We went as low this morning as below 96,000. We went to 95.9. That we're still at the top of this band. That shows us an area of weekly demand. Okay, coming all the way back to April 2025. Okay, we'll see by next week. We'll see how this area resolves, if price action is strong enough to push through, and it could do. Then we could slide all the way down to 85, 86 and below, or if there's enough demand coming in to push the price back up and move at the very least to around 100, 104. Okay, so we'll see what happens. In terms of smaller coins, where am I? instead of, it's, you know, in terms of smaller coins, you can see the kind of big dip drawdown that we had on at the beginning of October. Okay, like around the 10th of October. Yeah, we're still in a weekly chart. Okay, but so we're still within that move, as you can see here. We're still in that box. Okay, and moving towards areas where we've had demand coming in before, which again would be an extra. It could drop by as much as another 10% from now. So again, the long-term trend at the moment is intact, and would require the altcoins to move below 150 billion. At the moment, we're sitting at 235, and all rest being equal, if we can move into like the liquidity phase before breaking this point, we're probably looking at a new moving back to 450 and above. Okay, so I mean, at the very least, I'll be looking for a doubling of the current market cap right now, with a potential upside higher than that, and beyond the 2021 highs. Okay, but we'll see what happens. So this is the big drop that we had stopped short of this point. You know, and at the moment, the lowest weekly close still stand at 182 billion. You know, the next touch was 190, and then 212. So if anything, the last move down was sustained only up to 2012 billion. When we had the 10th of October, as you can see, it moved back down very violently, and then it moved back up way above that point. So opportunities are there. Opportunities are there to get back in. Now, if we see here, there isn't that much to see actually on them. I'm just watching to see where we can see some. Look how sharp the move back up was. So pretty much everything happening. Look at this. Everything happening in an hour. Price dropping. Can you imagine this? 42% in an hour. Yeah. And then price moving back up by 50% in an hour. Interesting. It would have been like almost impossible to get the bottom of this may happen so quickly. It would have been almost impossible to get into these moves at the right time. I show you how volatile the crypto market can be. Ever since then, you know, since then we moved into a very kind of like narrow band here. When I say narrow band, this is again a 30 to 40% band. So it's, yeah, that the more recent, the last month or so, we've been an even narrower band here, between about 270 and 215. Okay. So at the moment, what I would say is that there is a lot of fear in the market, and especially when we look at where the selling pressure is coming from. Put the trading sessions on. We can see the biggest down move are coming from the most liquid sessions. So London and New York are pushing the price down, at least over the past three sessions, or even kind of 4 sessions. So after, you know, over the last 4 days, both not 3 days, I'll say, both New York and London have actually put the price, push the price down quite substantially. Okay, so that's where the volume is, and that's where the strength is, and that's where the direction is at the moment. The one thing we can say, just looking at this, is looking at this kind of the angle of the move, basically. As you can see, that this is kind of like in a way slowing down, almost start when you put them side by side. You can see the first move, the second move even accelerating that, and then the third move actually slowing down. So we could be looking at one of the traditional, for those of you that are interested in technical trading and pattern recognition, we are halfway through forming one of the reverse patterns. Let's see if anybody can call this. Can you see what that is? What this is called? This is called the cup and handle. Okay, so if this completes, then the next move is expected to break higher. But we'll see. We're still a long way to go. We're looking at kind of hourly candles. So we'll see if that ends up materializing. But this is almost like we are halfway through the formation of that pattern. Oh, come on, just delete that, please. There we are. Okay, so I think I've talked enough, so let me stop sharing. And let's see if anybody has any questions about anything at all to do with crypto.
So what's driving the price down? And are they playing games, manipulating the market?
Almost guaranteed. Almost guaranteed. What's pushing the price down, as we can see, mostly is being, we can say long-term holders are pretty much holding steady. Short-term holders are selling off, obviously being scared. So that's what has been kind of dominated the market. There are some cases already being talked about, not so much in Bitcoin, which is already more difficult to manipulate, but smaller coins, Hyperliquid, for example, there is a case about against the big holders has been accused of manipulating the price. So this is almost a daily occurrence, and this is why I'm thinking the smaller the coin that you are trying to trade, the more chance there is of it being manipulated. Once you're talking about Bitcoin, you're talking already at about 2.5 trillion worth of market cap. So yeah, obviously, can it be manipulated? Certainly, but you need to have a certain clout to be able to manipulate Bitcoin's price. So there's only a handful of holders can actually do that willingly. But it is definitely possible. What's pushing the price? So if we kind of zoom out, what's pushing the price down? It's again the uncertainty and kind of deteriorating expectations. So kind of like the any delay in lowering interest rates is playing negatively in the markets, and in particular crypto is seen as like a multiplier of any negative move. So at the moment is reacting very negatively to anything remotely negative, which almost like tells you that there is a concentrated effort to take advantage of any volume, because when there are these announcements, obviously there is more trading volume going on, and with more volume they try and use it to push the price down, because obviously if you want to sell a big chunk of Bitcoin on normal day, it will cause a big downswing. So they're waiting for waiting for periods of high volume to be able to do that without affecting the price too much. Because if you hold a lot of Bitcoin, yes, you got interest to sell at a good price, but also, the coins they are left in your pocket. You do want to make sure they don't go too low. So it's a dance all the time to extract funds without making the project crash listing price. Okay, anybody else? So shall we see how we could take advantage of something like this, the current move, apart from going out and
Yep.
buying crypto directly? We could do it, as a proxy. We could use the Bitcoin ETF. So let me just take these. Let's say long term. We have a look at this, and the first place to spring to mind is that we would love to buy Bitcoin back at this point down here, which would be equivalent to what we saw in the chart, about 75,000 price of Bitcoin. So how could we get paid to do that? Is by going to the options and doing that. So if we go IBIT, let's have a look at the option sharing for IBIT. When eventually loads, while that is loading, we can have a look at what price we would like to buy at. So anything between 47 and 43 would be good. I'd be pretty happy to buy Bitcoin at that price. Okay, this is the Bitcoin ETF that launched, when it first launched, was at about $28 in January 2024. So if you could buy for around 47, it would be kind of like a great buy. So, and let's say we want to buy as kind of November expiration is fairly close, is next week. So we want to give a little bit more time so we can get the December expiration on the 19th. So this is when the monthly option expire, which is on the third Friday of the month. So if we wanted to buy a 47, December the 19th, okay, so at the moment we could sell a put for 77 cents. So on here we could sell a say a $47 strike price put with expiration on December the 19th and collect 77 cents. What would that mean? Let's have a look at what's the current stock price. Let's check that. It's 55.59 at the moment. 55, and how many days to expiration? So we had the 19th of December minus what's left of November, which is 16 days. So it's 35 days to expiration. Okay, so if we did that, and the strike price of it would be $47. Okay, so we will need to have to do this $4,700 in our account. Okay, in case we were assigned this option and we had to buy these shares. So for having $4,700 in our account, and if price doesn't get to that point, which it probably won't, but if it does, it would be a great buy. We will get 1.64%, which is equivalent to 17% on an annual basis. Wouldn't be a bad deal at all. Because then if we were lucky enough for price to come that low and get assigned, we'll probably have a nice bounce, and we could then make money on the other side of the option as well, trying to sell a call on it and secure a nice profit. So what do you think of that? Could you do with basically being paid? Oh, sorry, that's not being paid 17% simply for trying to buy Bitcoin at a steal. Wouldn't be a bad way to park your money, because what if Bitcoin, let's say, just turns around and goes higher, you just carry on, pick up your premium and do it again, and then you employ your cash at 17%. If it comes down to your price, you bought absolutely a Bitcoin at a really cheap price, as you identified from your charting, and you're happy because you would have been happy to pay, to buy at that price anyway. But not only that, but you got paid to wait. And obviously, if the price carries on going down, the closer it gets to this area, the higher the premiums will be. So you could collect even more if you waited, and so if you think the price is going down again, if you waited a few hours maybe when the market reopens, and if the price goes lower, then the premium will be higher than 77 cents. How much will be higher by 77 cents? We look at that from the delta. Okay, so for each dollar that Bitcoin moves down, the premium will increase by 17% to that move. So for each $1,000 move in Bitcoin, we will get basically a 17 cents increase in what we will get by selling a put, which is not a bad deal overall. So let's say Bitcoin was coming down to by an extra $2,000 today, then you will be probably picking up more than $1 for that, for selling the option. Okay, and then obviously that would increase. Let's say in here, if you instead of 77 cents, you had maybe $1, that will bring your total to 22%. 2% straight away from the premium, and if you don't get assigned, then and carry on doing it, it will be at an average of 22% a year. So bear that in mind. So there could be a ways of, when you are thinking, when you have money in your account that you want to invest, and you're thinking, shall I, shan't I? Well, you can use time to your advantage, because when you're doing this with options, basically you're making money by selling time. Okay, because every day that goes by, the premium has got like a intrinsic value, which is depending on the price of the fund, and time value. So time value will go down with each day that goes past, and the price is not trading at the strike price or below. So what we receive in premium will then decay until it gets to zero by the time the option expires and the price is still above 47. So you can use, while you're waiting for something to happen, and this is whether it is with Bitcoin or it is with a stock that you're trying to buy, you can use time to your advantage instead of just simply, the alternative would be to simply put a limit order and wait for price to hit it. But in that case, you still have the money sitting in your account waiting for that limit order to hit, but you wouldn't be paid a premium. Okay, so same thing, but in this case, you got an extra advantage. Okay, guys, it's 10 o'clock, so I'll need to go, as I've got a kind of a meeting starting straight away. So I wish you all a fantastic weekend. Please go and follow Jonathan in his Cardano session that starts pretty much straight away after this, shortly after this. And and learn more. You still got a few more days to collect midnight tokens if you are willing to participate into the scavenger phase of the midnight glacier drop. So if you haven't done it yet and you want to learn how to do it, then go and join Jonathan, and he will show you exactly what you need to do. Okay, so see you all next week, and yeah, have a good weekend, everyone.